The day Alex asked to meet at our usual cafe felt like any other. The sky hinted at rain, a gentle reminder of the ever-changing seasons in our small town. I arrived early, a habit born from a desire to gather my thoughts before facing him. The cafe, with its familiar warmth and the comforting smell of coffee, offered a semblance of peace. Alex arrived shortly after, his presence disrupting the calm. "Leah, thanks for coming on such short notice," he began, his voice betraying a hint of unease. I nodded, folding my hands on the table, bracing myself. "What's this about, Alex? Is Mia okay?" The concern for our daughter was immediate, overshadowing the remnants of bitterness between us. He quickly assured me, "Mia's fine, it's not that. It's..." I was wondering if she could stay with me for a while. The request caught me off guard, stirring a whirlpool of emotions. "Stay with you? For how long exactly?" I probed, trying to hide my surprise. "A few months," he clarified, avoiding direct eye contact. "I think it would be good for her, and for me." I studied him for a moment, searching for the underlying reason. Our shared custody had always been amicable, but this was a significant change. "Why now, Alex? What's changed?" I asked, needing to understand his sudden desire to alter the balance we had carefully maintained. He sighed, a deep, weary sound. "I've missed so much of her life, Leah. These weekend visits aren't enough. I want to be more involved, to really be a father to her." His words, sincere and filled with regret, softened the protective wall I had built around my heart. Mia adored her father, and despite our differences, I knew Alex loved her deeply. "Let me think about it," I finally said, the decision weighing heavily on me. "I'll talk to Mia, see how she feels about this." Alex nodded, a look of gratitude passing over his features. "Thank you, Leah. That's all I ask." As I left the cafe, the sky opened up, releasing a gentle shower that seemed to cleanse away some of the tension from our meeting. The drive home was a blur of thoughts, my mind grappling with the possibility of change. Mia's happiness was my priority, and if spending more time with Alex was what she needed, then I would find a way to make it work. That evening, as I sat down with Mia to discuss the proposal, her reaction was as enthusiastic as Alex had hoped. "Really, Mom? I can stay with Daddy for a while? That would be awesome." Her excitement was infectious, but I needed her to understand the implications. "It would mean a big change, sweetheart. You'd be living there for a few months." "Are you sure?" Mia's nod was emphatic, her smile wide. "I love it here with you, Mom. But I miss Daddy too. I want to spend more time with him." Her words settled it. The decision was made, not out of defeat, but from a place of love and understanding. I would let Mia stay with Alex, trusting that this twist of fate would bring about a positive change in our lives. Little did I know, this decision would unravel a mystery that had been lying dormant, setting us on a path that would alter our lives forever. Mia's transition to living with Alex for a few months was smoother than I had anticipated. Their days were filled with activities, and every evening, Mia would share stories of her adventures with Alex. It was during one of our nightly phone calls that Mia's discovery came to light. "Mom, guess what I found in the attic today?" Mia's voice was bubbling with excitement through the phone. "What did you find, sweetie?" I asked, smiling at her enthusiasm. "A big, old photo album with pictures of Dad when he was young. And there's this lady with him in almost all the photos. She's really pretty. Dad looked so happy." Mia's tone shifted to curiosity. I felt a pang of curiosity mixed with an unexpected twinge of jealousy. "Did your dad say who she was?" I probed gently, not wanting to make Mia feel uncomfortable. Mia's response was quick. "Yeah, I asked him. But he just got all quiet and said it was someone from a long time ago. He didn't want to talk about it." Her words piqued my interest. Alex had never mentioned anyone from his past during our marriage. "Mia, can you bring the album next time you come over? I'd love to see it." "Sure, Mom. There are so many pictures." It's like a treasure," Mia exclaimed, her previous enthusiasm returning. The following weekend, Mia brought the album. As we sat together on the living room couch, flipping through its pages, I was transported to a time in Alex's life I knew nothing about. The woman in the photos was indeed beautiful, with a radiant smile that seemed to light up the room, even from a photograph. "Mia said you didn't tell her much about this woman," I mentioned, trying to keep my tone neutral as I pointed to a picture of the two of them laughing together. Alex, who had come to pick Mia up, looked uncomfortable. "Her name was Sarah. We were close, once upon a time," he admitted, taking a seat beside us, but keeping a careful distance from the album. "Close?" I pressed, curious despite myself. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I remembered well. "We were involved before I met you. It ended badly. She disappeared." Disappeared? The word hung heavy in the air, loaded with unspoken implications. Alex nodded, his gaze distant. "One day she was there, the next she wasn't. No one knew what happened to her. It was a long time ago, Leah. I'd rather not dig up the past. But the past, it seemed, had a way of making itself known." Seeing the photographs, hearing the pain in Alex's voice, reignited a spark of curiosity in me. Here was a part of Alex's life, a part of his heart, shrouded in mystery. "Mia, honey, why don't you go pack up your things?" I suggested, wanting a moment alone with Alex. Once Mia was out of earshot, I turned to Alex. "This woman, Sarah, she meant a lot to you, didn't she?" Alex met my gaze, his usual guarded demeanor faltering. "Yes, she did. But Leah, why does this matter now?" "Because Mia found these photos, Alex. And because I think everyone deserves to know their story, even if it's a difficult one. Maybe it's time to find out what really happened to Sarah." Alex looked torn, a war of emotions playing across his face. Finally, he nodded. "Maybe you're right. But where do we even start?" I smiled, a plan already forming in my mind. "Let's start at the beginning. Together, we'll find out what happened to Sarah." As we embarked on this unexpected journey, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to unravel a mystery that would change everything. Little did I know how right I would be. The decision to delve into Sarah's disappearance wasn't one we took lightly. The mystery that had remained unsolved for years was about to be reopened, and with it, a chapter of Alex's life he had long tried to forget. Yet, there was a palpable sense of determination between us, a shared resolve to unearth the truth. On a cloudy Saturday morning, Alex and I sat across from each other at my kitchen table, surrounded by old newspapers, journals, and a laptop open to a search engine. The task ahead seemed daunting, but the need for answers propelled us forward. "Where do we even start?" I asked, breaking the silence that had settled over us. Alex ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of uncertainty. "I've been thinking about that. Maybe we should start with her friends, the people she was close to back then. If anyone knows something, it might be them." It was a logical first step. "Do you have any of them in mind?" I inquired, reaching for a notepad to jot down any leads. "Yeah, there was Jenna, her best friend. And Mark, they worked together at the bookstore downtown." Alex's voice grew stronger as he named them, the memories coming back to him. I noted the names, aware of the delicate task of reaching out to them after so many years. "Okay, I'll look them up, see if I can find contact information." As I typed the names into the search engine, Alex leaned over, pointing at the screen when Jenna's social media profile appeared. "That's her," he confirmed, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. I sent Jenna a carefully worded message, explaining who we were and why we were reaching out. Then, we moved on to Mark, finding an email address associated with a local business. The waiting that followed was a test of patience. Every passing hour without a response tightened the knot of tension between us. It wasn't until late afternoon that my phone chimed with a notification. It was a message from Jenna. "Alex? It's Jenna. I got your message. It's been so long." I never thought I'd hear about Sarah again, I read aloud, the words feeling surreal. Alex leaned in, his expression a mix of hope and apprehension. What does she say? Will she talk to us? She's agreed to meet us tomorrow morning at the cafe downtown, I replied, a wave of relief washing over me. The next morning, we found Jenna waiting for us at the cafe, her appearance barely changed from the photos we had seen. After initial pleasantries, we dove into the reason for our meeting. Jenna, we're trying to find out what happened to Sarah. Anything you remember could help, Alex said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. Jenna sighed, a shadow crossing her features. I've always wondered, after she disappeared, it was like she was just erased. People moved on, but I couldn't. Sarah was planning to leave town, did you know that? Alex shook his head, the information clearly new to him. Leave town? Why? She was scared, Jenna continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. She said someone was threatening her, making her life hell. But she wouldn't tell me who. A week later, she was gone. The revelation was a bombshell, casting a new light on Sarah's disappearance. The notion that she had been threatened changed everything, suggesting her decision to leave wasn't voluntary. Did she mention anything else? Any clue about who might have been threatening her? I pressed, aware of how vital any piece of information could be. Jenna shook her head, regret etched on her face. I wish I knew more. Sarah was private about her fears. But I always suspected. Suspected who? Alex interjected, leaning forward. Jenna hesitated, then sighed. Mark. They had a falling out not long before she vanished. He was obsessed with her. The mention of Mark, a name we had come across in our initial search, felt like a piece of the puzzle clicking into place. Our next step was clear. We needed to find Mark and uncover his connection to Sarah's disappearance. As we left the cafe, the sky had cleared, but the path ahead seemed clouded with more questions than answers. Yet, with each step, we were determined to piece together the mystery of Sarah's fate, unaware of the twists and turns that awaited us. The morning air was crisp, carrying the promise of revelations as Alex and I approached the bookstore where Mark now worked. The quaint shop, nestled between a cafe and a boutique, seemed an unlikely place for answers to a mystery that had lingered for years. Are you ready for this? I asked Alex, noting the tension in his posture as we stood outside the store. He nodded, a determined glint in his eye. Let's find out the truth. Inside, the bookstore was a labyrinth of shelves, each aisle a whisper of stories untold. We found Mark behind the counter, his appearance much changed from the photographs we had seen. Time had etched lines into his face, and his eyes held a wariness that piqued my curiosity. Mark? I'm Alex, and this is Leah. We need to talk to you about Sarah, Alex said, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of apprehension. Mark's reaction was immediate, his eyes widening in recognition before darting away, a clear sign of discomfort. Sarah? That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. What about her? We're trying to find out what happened to her. Jenna mentioned you two had a falling out before she disappeared, I interjected, watching his reaction closely. Mark sighed, a deep, resigned sound, and motioned for us to follow him to a more private corner of the store. Yes, we had a disagreement. It was a difficult time. But I had nothing to do with her disappearance. Jenna suggested you were obsessed with Sarah. That you might have been threatening her, Alex pressed, the accusation hanging heavily in the air. Mark's face flushed with anger, or perhaps guilt, it was hard to tell. Obsessed? That's ridiculous. I cared about Sarah, yes, but I would never harm her. You have to believe me. His denial was vehement, but something in his tone suggested there was more to the story. If you cared about her, then help us. Tell us everything you know. Any detail could help us understand what happened to her, I said, hoping to appeal to his better nature. Mark looked between us, conflict evident in his gaze. Finally, he relented, his shoulders slumping in defeat. All right. Sarah was scared, that much was true. She said someone was sending her threatening messages, but she wouldn't tell me who. I tried to help, but she pushed me away. His words added another layer of complexity to the puzzle. Do you have any idea who might have been sending those messages? Alex asked, his voice softer now, recognizing the pain in Mark's admission. I don't. I always suspected someone from her past, someone she knew before she moved here. But she never confirmed it, Mark admitted, a note of sorrow in his voice. The conversation with Mark left us with more questions than answers. The identity of the person threatening Sarah remained a mystery, a shadow that loomed large over our quest for the truth. As we left the bookstore, the weight of our discovery hung between us. Sarah's fear, Mark's denial, and the unknown sender of the threatening messages formed a complex web we were determined to untangle. Where do we go from here? Alex asked, the frustration evident in his voice. I pondered for a moment, the pieces of the puzzle swirling in my mind. We need to dig deeper into Sarah's past, find out who she was before she met you. There has to be a clue somewhere. Our journey into the past was far from over. Each step revealed hidden facets of Sarah's life, drawing us closer to the truth. Yet, the path was fraught with uncertainties, the outcome unpredictable. But one thing was clear, we were committed to uncovering the truth, no matter where it led us. The mystery of Sarah's disappearance, once a dormant chapter in Alex's life, was now an unfolding story that promised to change everything. The lead from Mark about Sarah's fear and the unknown threats she faced propelled us deeper into the mystery of her disappearance. The next step was to delve into Sarah's past, to uncover the roots of the fear that drove her into hiding. Alex and I decided to visit Sarah's hometown, a small, picturesque place that seemed untouched by time. Our goal was to speak with anyone who might have known Sarah before she vanished. Upon arriving, we headed straight to the local library, hoping to find public records or old newspapers that could offer clues. The librarian, a kindly older woman named Mrs. Henderson, was more than willing to help when we explained our mission. Sarah, you say? The poor girl who disappeared all those years ago? What brings you looking for her now? Mrs. Henderson asked, peering at us over her glasses with a mix of curiosity and concern. Alex took the lead, his voice tinged with emotion. She was very important to me, Mrs. Henderson. We're trying to find out what happened to her. Mrs. Henderson nodded, understanding in her eyes. Follow me, then. We keep old newspapers in the archives. Maybe you'll find something there. The archives were a treasure trove of history, each newspaper a snapshot of the past. We spent hours poring over articles, until a small piece about a local drama club caught our eye. Sarah had been mentioned as a lead in their annual play, a detail that seemed innocuous until we read further. The article hinted at an offstage drama, a love triangle, that had the town whispering. This could be something, I murmured, tapping the article. Maybe one of the people involved in this love triangle was the one sending her threats. Alex nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. Let's find out who else was in the club. They might be able to tell us more. Our inquiry led us to a woman named Emily, a former drama club member who had been close to Sarah. We found her at a cozy cafe in the heart of town, where she agreed to meet us after some initial hesitation. Sarah was my friend, Emily began, stirring her coffee nervously. When she disappeared, it was a shock to all of us. But if I'm being honest, I wasn't entirely surprised. Why not? I asked gently, sensing we were about to uncover a significant piece of the puzzle. Emily sighed, a look of sadness crossing her face. Because of Daniel. He was obsessed with Sarah, wouldn't take no for an answer. When she started seeing someone else, he didn't take it well. Daniel? Alex echoed, confusion evident in his voice. Do you mean Mark? No, Daniel. Mark was just a friend. But Daniel, he was dangerous. After Sarah disappeared, he left town, and no one heard from him again. The revelation was a bombshell, shifting the focus of our investigation entirely. A new name, a new suspect, someone neither Alex nor I had considered. Do you know where Daniel might have gone? Or how we can find him? I asked, the urgency clear in my voice. Emily shook her head, her expression apologetic. I'm sorry, I don't. After he left, it was like he vanished into thin air. We left the cafe with heavy hearts, the weight of Emily's revelations hanging over us. Daniel, a name that had never come up in our search, was now the key to unraveling the mystery of Sarah's disappearance. As we drove back, the silence between Alex and I was filled with unspoken fears and questions. The past, it seemed, was darker and more complex than we had imagined. Leah, Alex finally said, breaking the silence, I had no idea about any of this. Daniel, the threats, it's all news to me. I know, Alex, I replied, placing a reassuring hand on his. We're in this together. We'll find the truth, for Sarah's sake. The journey into Sarah's past had taken an unexpected turn, unveiling secrets that had been buried for years. The mystery of her disappearance, once a distant tragedy, was now a tangible presence in our lives, guiding us towards a truth that promised to change everything. With the name Daniel now etched into our investigation, Alex and I found ourselves standing at the threshold of a revelation that could potentially solve the mystery that had haunted us for so long. The drive back from Sarah's hometown was filled with a palpable tension, our minds racing with the implications of Emily's disclosures. That name, Daniel, it never came up before, not in any of our talks about Sarah, Alex said, breaking the silence that had enveloped us since we left the cafe. I know, I replied, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. It's like he was a ghost, leaving no trace behind except for the memories of those who knew him and feared him. The following days were consumed with trying to trace Daniel's steps after he left town. Our efforts led us to a private investigator who specialized in cold cases. Explaining our situation, we hoped he could shed some light on Daniel's whereabouts after he vanished. Daniel, the investigator, a grizzled man named Hank, mused as he sifted through the information we provided. Disappearing without a trace isn't as easy as it sounds. There's always something left behind. Let's see what we can find. Hank's confidence was reassuring, offering a glimmer of hope in what felt like an endless tunnel. Days turned into weeks as he delved into the past, following the scant leads that had emerged from our conversation with Emily. Then, one afternoon, as autumn began to paint the world in shades of gold and crimson, Hank called us into his office. I found something, he announced without preamble, his expression serious. Alex and I exchanged anxious glances before focusing on Hank, our breaths held in anticipation. Daniel changed his name after he left town. Moved across the country and started anew. But, Hank paused, letting the weight of his next words sink in. He passed away 5 years ago. Car accident. The news was a shock, a final twist in the winding path we had followed. Daniel, the missing piece of the puzzle, could no longer answer the questions that had tormented us for so long. But that's not all, Hank continued, his tone indicating there was more to the story. Before he died, Daniel wrote a letter. To whom, it's unclear, but it was found among his possessions. It's confessional. He handed us a copy of the letter, the words blurring before my eyes as I tried to comprehend their meaning. Daniel confessed to his obsession with Sarah, to the threats he made in a misguided attempt to win her back. But most shockingly, he confessed to confronting Sarah the night she disappeared, to an argument that spiraled out of control, leading to unintended tragedy. I never meant to hurt her, the letter read, Daniel's remorse seeping through the words. In my madness, I thought I could make her love me. But I only brought her harm. I've lived with this guilt every day, haunted by the ghost of what I've done. The revelation was a gut punch, the final piece of the puzzle slotting into place with a bitter click. Sarah's fate, a mystery that had lingered in the shadows, was now painfully clear. We took the letter to the police, the evidence compelling enough to reopen the case. Though Daniel was no longer around to face the consequences of his actions, the truth brought a semblance of closure to those he had left behind. As Alex and I stood together, the letter's contents heavy on our hearts, we realized that our journey had come to an end. The mystery of Sarah's disappearance had been solved, the shadows of the past finally dispelled by the light of truth. Leah, Alex began, his voice choked with emotion. Shoo, I interrupted, placing a hand on his arm. You don't have to say anything. We found the truth. That's what matters. In the weeks that followed, a quiet understanding settled between us, the ordeal drawing us closer in a way neither of us had expected. Our shared grief for Sarah, and the guilt that Alex carried, had been alleviated by the truth, even if it couldn't erase the past. Life moved on, as it always does, but the journey we undertook together remained a testament to the enduring power of love, the unbreakable bonds of family, and the undeniable need for closure. In the end, it was a twist of fate that brought us to the truth, proving that sometimes, the most painful paths lead to the most